The clock in the break room ticked steadily as Emily Vargas, 24, a nurse at Sharp Memorial Hospital, finished her late shift in San Diego. That May night was calm, with a gentle sea breeze drifting through Mission Valley. At 11:37, Lakeview Hospital cameras captured the last image of her walking out to the staff parking lot in a gray jacket, backpack slung over her shoulder. Emily headed toward her silver Toyota Corolla, the car that had carried her along familiar roads for the past 2 years. But just 8 minutes later, her phone signal went dead, never to reconnect. What happened in that brief window would haunt San Diego for a decade. Before diving into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest cases. Emily Vargas, 24, was a driven young nurse at Sharp Memorial Hospital in San Diego, where night shifts often felt like a tense race against time. On the evening of May 12, 2012, Emily worked a shift from 3 p.m. to nearly midnight, bustling through the ER with car accident victims, elderly patients with heart failure, and children with high fevers. The relentless pressure, incessant beeping of monitors, and harsh fluorescent lights left the team exhausted. But Emily kept a smile, patting colleagues on the shoulder as if to urge them not to give up. A female doctor recalled that despite her fatigue, Emily volunteered to handle extra paperwork so others could take a brief break. That was how she carried herself at work, always putting others before herself. Around 11:20 p.m., Emily stepped into the hospital's cramped break room, peeled off her gloves, removed her stained white blouse, and sat down to gulp some water. A colleague glimpsed her tying back her long hair, slipping on her familiar gray jacket, and adjusting her backpack straps. As she stood to gather her things, the wall clock neared 11:30. No one could have known it would be the last time they saw her in the hospital. At 11:37 p.m., staff parking lot security camera captured the final image, Emily walking briskly past rows of silent cars, her petite figure standing out under the dim yellow lights, backpack neatly on her back, looking tired but steady, as if eager to head home and rest. She was alone, with no visible signs of anything amiss. In those fleeting seconds, the last frame of Emily's existence in this world was recorded. No other cameras captured her presence after that. Her phone, active throughout her shift, abruptly lost signal at 11:45 p.m. Its last ping located in Mission Valley, just a short distance from the hospital. Emily's roommate, used to her occasional late returns, but never an overnight absence without notice, grew uneasy when the clock struck 7 a.m. and Emily's bed remained untouched. Her toothbrush was still wet from the previous evening, her bed neatly made, and her clothes for the next day hung orderly. No calls connected. No texts were answered. A chill ran down her roommate's spine, unease turning to panic, and within minutes, an urgent call was placed to the San Diego Police Department. A young nurse had vanished in the night without explanation, leaving a void that would soon plunge the community into a nightmare. When detectives received the missing person report, it was just past 8 a.m. A rapid response team was dispatched to Emily Vargas's apartment, where she lived with a female roommate. They knocked, were let in, and began surveying the scene. The apartment door was securely locked, the deadbolt intact, with no signs of forced entry or external tampering. Inside, everything was tidy. Emily's bed was pristine, unused from the night before, her vanity neat with a makeup box and mirror undisturbed. On the small dining table, a thick nursing textbook lay open, a ballpoint pen resting diagonally across the page, as if she'd paused studying to head to her evening shift and would return to continue. In the bathroom, her toothbrush was wet from the previous night, and a towel hung neatly. There were no signs Emily had packed or prepared to leave for an extended period. This detail caught the detectives' attention. Those who plan to leave typically create gaps or take clothes and personal documents. But in this apartment, everything seemed frozen in the moment Emily stepped out the previous night. After documenting the apartment, the detectives headed to Sharp Memorial Hospital to inspect the staff parking lot. This was where the security camera had captured the final frame, 11:37 p.m. Emily, in her gray jacket and backpack, moving swiftly past cars toward her silver Corolla. By morning, the spot where her car had been was just cold concrete. No shattered glass, no skid marks, no signs of a struggle. The detectives crouched to examine the pavement, finding only unrelated old oil stains. The emptiness was eerie. The car had vanished with its young owner, leaving no trace. They expanded their search, reviewing cameras around the hospital and its entrances, but the security system was outdated, with blurry footage and blind spots. A distant camera briefly caught headlights flashing by around 11:50 p.m., but it wasn't clear enough to identify a license plate or car model. The fragmented, hazy footage left the detectives grasping in the dark. Next, they interviewed Emily's shift colleagues. One nurse recalled Emily stopping by the break room, tying her hair back, putting on her gray jacket, and offering a tired smile before leaving. She looked worn out, but normal, the nurse said. A doctor confirmed Emily signed off on her last patient at 11:20 p.m., returned a pen, and neatly organized files before heading out. Everything seemed completely normal, no warning signs, he emphasized. No one saw her with anyone else or noticed any strangers nearby. When questioning the night shift security guard at the parking lot, the detectives uncovered a potentially useful detail. The middle-aged guard, a veteran employee, recalled seeing a dark-colored pickup truck circling the lot around midnight, stopping a few times as if looking for a parking spot. At the time, he thought it was just a late-arriving staff member, but in hindsight, the timing aligned exactly with Emily's exit. When pressed, he couldn't recall the license plate or confirm the make, only that it wasn't a familiar hospital vehicle. Though vague, his statement opened the possibility that Emily was approached in the lot, a place considered safe. Meanwhile, another team was sent to the Vargas home to deliver the grim news. Emily's father, Miguel, clung to hope it was a mistake, repeatedly asking, could her phone have died? Could she be staying with friends? But when police confirmed her car vanished alongside her, he fell silent. Her mother, Rosa, broke down sobbing, collapsing into a chair at the words, "Missing person at risk." Each detail in the report deepened the family's fear. In the initial internal report, the case was marked high-risk missing person. All criteria fit. A young woman, sudden disappearance, missing vehicle, dead phone, no signs of voluntary departure. For the detectives, each passing hour diminished the chances of finding Emily alive. By the end of that day, San Diego PD held an emergency meeting, assembling the investigative team, K-9 unit, and data analysts. They knew they were entering a race against time, starting with only a blurry camera frame, a missing silver Corolla, and a faint account of a small pickup truck lurking in the night. From that emergency meeting, San Diego PD launched a wide-scale search that night. The K-9 unit was sent to the hospital, using Emily's jacket and backpack, provided by her roommate, for scent tracking. The dogs circled the parking lot, sniffing paths and trees, then suddenly pulled hard in one direction. Following their urgent barks, the detectives and officers trailed behind, hearts pounding with hope. The scent led straight to a side gate on Friars Road, then toward the I-805 freeway on-ramp. There, near the highway entrance, the dogs stopped, circled, and barked repeatedly, as if losing the trail. No human scent remained to follow. Emily's trace ended amid the roar of passing cars, as if she'd been taken away in a vehicle that night. The detectives exchanged quick radio calls, their faces tense. This matched the guard's account. The suspicious pickup truck circling the lot could have taken Emily away. If true, she was no longer near the hospital, but could be anywhere from San Diego to the Mexican border. To avoid wasting time, the police deployed a helicopter. Its spotlight swept across Mission Valley, Balboa Park, and nearby parks known for past body dumps. In the sky, the chopper circled, its beam scanning bushes, empty lots, and the San Diego River's banks. On the ground, patrol cars blocked freeway exits, checking suspicious vehicles. But by dawn, the search yielded only silence. No trace, no evidence, no camera capturing Emily leaving her car or being forced. It was as if she and her silver Corolla had dissolved into the night. The pressure mounted. Emily's friends, many in the medical field, couldn't sit idle. They printed posters with her photo in a nurse's uniform, her radiant smile framed by shoulder-length dark hair. Bold text read, "Missing. Have you seen Emily Vargas?" The posters appeared on utility poles, storefronts, gas stations, and bus stops. Volunteers fanned out across neighborhoods: North Park, Hillcrest, Mission Bay, Chula Vista. Some drove along highways, taping posters in hopes a passing driver saw something that night. The Vargas family appeared publicly, clutching Emily's photo, pleading for anyone with information to call the police hotline. Meanwhile, the media exploded. KUSA broke the story at noon. 24-year-old nurse vanishes mysteriously after night shift. Hours later, Fox 5 San Diego and the San Diego Union Tribune ran front-page stories. The case transcended a single disappearance, tapping into a deep community fear. If a young, educated, stable professional could vanish in central San Diego, anyone could be next. At coffee shops, supermarkets, and city council meetings, people whispered, "Is a predator targeting women?" The hotline was flooded with calls. Some reported a dark green pickup truck driving slowly in Mission Valley on May 12th. Others claimed to hear a scream from an apartment window near the hospital around midnight. One insisted they saw a woman in a gray jacket walking along El Cajon Boulevard, but as police followed each lead, most proved to be mistakes or embellishments. Still, every tip, however faint, was logged, verified, and filed. Internally, the pressure on San Diego PD intensified. Already stretched by robberies and gang violence, they diverted more resources to the search. Detectives met repeatedly, sketching timelines on whiteboards, pinning up Emily's photo and the silver Corolla, drawing arrows based on witness accounts and K9 results. No one said it aloud, but all knew. Each hour eroded the hope of finding Emily safe. As the second night fell, the helicopter's spotlight swept San Diego's skies again. But now, the community was on edge. Residents stood on porches, watching the beam circle like a desperate eye, searching. On social media, #FindEmily spread, garnering thousands of shares. Fear turned to unity. An entire city was striving to find a woman who vanished without a trace. Yet, despite hundreds of posters, dozens of searches, and hours of helicopter sweeps, everything circled back to zero. Emily Vargas, the young nurse with a gentle smile, left the parking lot at 11:37 p.m. on May 12, 2012. And no one knew what happened next. That lingering question, from the night of her disappearance to the frantic search days, became an obsession haunting the investigation for years. As the city was plastered with posters and media coverage surged, initial leads poured into San Diego PD, but they only muddied the picture. The first call came on the third morning after Emily's disappearance. A woman claimed that the previous night, she saw a girl matching Emily's description in the Gaslamp Quarter, a lively nightlife hub packed with bars, clubs, and restaurants. She wore a light-colored jacket, had shoulder-length black hair, and was with a man, the caller insisted. Detectives rushed to the area, requesting surveillance footage from nearby bars and hotels. They reviewed hours of video, scrutinizing every frame, comparing faces, gaits, and backpacks. The result? The woman resembled Emily, but wasn't her. The false lead drained the team, but they couldn't afford to dismiss any chance. Days later, a middle-aged taxi driver approached the police, certain he'd driven a woman resembling Emily in the early hours of May 13th, just hours after she left the hospital. He said the passenger was picked up near Hillcrest and asked to be driven toward Ocean Beach, a route leading to the city's west coast. She was silent the whole ride, staring out the window, wearing a gray jacket, he said confidently. The statement sparked hope. If true, Emily might have reached the coast, opening a new search area. But when police checked, they found the woman was an Arizona tourist staying at a nearby hotel, matching the taxi app's booking record. The driver hadn't lied, but his memory blurred after days of news exposure. Leads dwindled. Some reported seeing a dark-haired woman in a gray jacket at supermarkets, gas stations, or even Los Angeles. Each tip led to disappointment upon verification. The painful truth was that such reports are common in missing person cases, as panicked communities see the victim's face in strangers. Amid the chaos, one lead stood out: cell tower data. San Diego PD's tech team worked with Emily's carrier to trace her phone's final ping. The report showed her signal cut off abruptly at 11:45 p.m. 8 minutes after the camera's last image of her in the hospital lot. The location was Mission Valley, near the Friars Road and I-805 interchange. This aligned chillingly with the K9 search. The dog had led to this exact area before losing the scent. Detectives mapped it out. From Sharp Memorial's parking lot, Emily could have driven to the signal's cutoff point in minutes. But beyond that, nothing, no traffic cameras, no witnesses, no license plates. Everything stopped at 11:45. To investigators, it was a wall of silence. They suspected her phone was deliberately turned off or discarded to erase traces, common in abductions. But without physical evidence, they couldn't prove it. In internal meetings, the mood grew heavy. A young detective blurted, "It's like she was swallowed up in the middle of the city." Another replied coldly, "Someone planned this and knew how to vanish." The lone lead, her phone signal dying in Mission Valley, was both tantalizing and elusive. It showed Emily left the hospital, but then she and her silver Corolla seemed to evaporate from San Diego. In the following days, posters remained plastered across the city. Helicopters swept nightly, but no new breakthroughs emerged. All the police had were false leads, a useless camera clip, and a phone signal silenced at 11:45. These scattered clues, instead of offering a path forward, turned Emily Vargas's case into a labyrinth with no exit, leaving San Diego gripped by fear and despair. As social leads dried up and the Mission Valley phone signal became a dead end, San Diego PD turned to a familiar investigative path: those closest to Emily Vargas. Statistics show that in sudden disappearances, perpetrators are often not complete strangers, but someone the victim knew or trusted. Thus, the initial suspect list focused on her ex-boyfriend, a problematic colleague, and neighbors near her apartment. First, detectives approached Daniel Ortega, Emily's ex-boyfriend, whom she'd split from 7 months earlier. Ortega, 26, a software engineer in Sorrento Valley, had met Emily in college. Post-breakup, they maintained casual contact, occasionally texting. Some of Emily's friends said Daniel had wanted to reconcile, but she refused, raising the possibility of resentment. When summoned to the station, Ortega cooperated fully. He said on May 12th, he attended a friend's birthday dinner in Little Italy, then joined the group at a bar until nearly 1 a.m. Detectives were skeptical, but verified his alibi. Bar cameras confirmed his presence, backed by 6 witnesses, and his phone's location data. With such a solid alibi, Ortega was ruled out. The second suspect was a male colleague at Sharp Memorial Hospital, whom Emily had reported for verbal harassment. Hospital records showed that in March 2012, Emily filed a complaint about his repeated teasing and unwanted shoulder touches during shifts. The issue was handled internally, with the colleague formally warned. When Emily vanished, detectives considered revenge as a motive. The man, visibly nervous during questioning, insisted he was innocent, claiming he was home with his wife and kids in Chula Vista that night. Investigators verified. Neighbors confirmed his car was parked at home all evening, and a nearby traffic camera caught his wife's car at 11:50 p.m., buying medicine. His phone data also showed he stayed home. The initial suspicion faded, though his file remained under watch. While canvassing Emily's North Park apartment complex, another lead emerged. An elderly neighbor reported hearing an unfamiliar car engine around midnight on May 12th in the building's basement parking. She said it wasn't the quiet hum of Emily's silver Corolla, but a loud, grinding sound like an old car or small truck. Too cautious to check at that hour, she noted the sound vividly. Detectives logged this, connecting it to the hospital guard's report of a suspicious pickup truck. Together, the accounts painted a chilling picture A truck might have followed Emily from the hospital, intercepted her in the lot, and taken her away. But beyond the neighbor's story, no evidence existed, no camera footage or other witnesses heard the sound. The account offered direction, but lacked proof. After thoroughly vetting known contacts, the results were discouraging. The ex-boyfriend had a solid alibi, the harassing colleague was home with family, and the neighbor's account was too vague. None provided enough evidence for charges. In meetings, the lead detective admitted, "We're back to square one. If it's not someone she knew, it could be a random predator, and that's exponentially harder." By the end of the first week, the suspects of interest file was filled with crossed-out notes. Emily Vargas's case entered its toughest phase, no known suspects to pursue, no cameras to trace, no direct witnesses. All that remained was a vague theory of a small truck in the night, and a young woman who vanished as if she'd never existed. 6 months after May 12, 2012, Emily Vargas's file sat untouched on San Diego PD's desks, with no new pages added. Early leads had faded, leaving the community weary and helpless. Investigators had chased hundreds of tips, from false hotline calls to imagined witness accounts, all leading nowhere. Most chillingly, Emily's silver Corolla, the key evidence that might hold secrets of that night, remained missing. No car, no secondary crime scene, no physical evidence to pinpoint where Emily went after leaving the hospital lot. Detectives spent weeks checking scrapyards, garages, and even enlisted the California Highway Patrol to review federal traffic cameras. But among thousands of license plates, the silver Corolla was nowhere to be found, as if it had vanished into thin air. In the meetings, the atmosphere grew somber. The whiteboard, once filled with arrows, photos, and connection diagrams, was gradually erased, replaced with a stark phrase, "No physical evidence." The detectives didn't say it aloud, but everyone knew investigating a missing person case without physical evidence was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Witness statements might point in a direction, but courts needed concrete proof, and they had nothing tangible to hold. By November 2012, after 6 months of exhaustive effort, the San Diego Police Department was forced to issue a temporary conclusion. Emily Vargas's case was reclassified as a cold case. The report stated, "Insufficient basis to continue active investigation. Case archived pending new evidence or technology." This decision hit the Vargas family hard. For the police, it was just an administrative note, but for Emily's parents and loved ones, it felt like a declaration that their daughter had been abandoned. Upon hearing the news, Miguel Vargas sat silently in the living room, his eyes vacant. Rosa wailed, saying the police had given up on her daughter twice. First when they couldn't find her, and now when they stopped looking. Emily's younger sister, 3 years her junior, posted on social media, "Sis, they may close your case, but our family will never give up." The post went viral, garnering thousands of shares, but for the family, the attention couldn't fill the raw void of reality. To keep hope alive, the Vargas family organized a public prayer vigil. They chose Balboa Park, where Emily loved to jog on weekends, where she took countless radiant photos under ancient trees. On November 12th, exactly 6 months after her disappearance, hundreds gathered. Some brought candles, others flowers, and many carried heavy hearts. On the green lawn, a large photo of Emily was displayed, surrounded by flickering candles as dusk fell. The Vargas family's parish priest stood at the microphone, voice breaking. "We pray for Emily, for justice, and for the darkness in this city to soon be illuminated." Nurses from Sharp Memorial Hospital attended, wearing white uniforms, eyes red with tears. A close friend of Emily's stepped forward, sharing that days before vanishing, Emily had talked about enrolling in an advanced nursing course, dreaming of becoming an instructor. "She never got the chance to do that," the friend whispered. The crowd stood silent, with only the sound of wind rustling through the trees. The scene shook San Diego. Local media covered the vigil, emphasizing that the community hadn't forgotten Emily. But within the police department, her file now sat neatly in a steel cold case cabinet, coded and shelved. Detectives moved on to new cases, leaving behind an unsolved shadow. Yet in that moment, as candles flickered in Balboa Park, casting light on the Vargas family, a silent vow was made. They would keep searching, keep pleading, and keep hoping until answers came. Though the police called it a cold case, for the family, their hearts would never grow cold. After the Balboa Park vigil in late 2012, Emily Vargas's case gradually faded into the shadows. Over the next 8 years, from 2013 to 2020, San Diego saw hundreds of new cases, and the young nurse's disappearance remained dormant in the cold case unit's icy cabinets. The media stopped covering it regularly, only revisiting on anniversaries of her disappearance, like a familiar name on the city's list of unsolved mysteries. To the public, Emily became a faint memory, but for the Vargas family, the silence never meant forgetting. Each year, on May 12th, they held a small memorial. Initially at Balboa Park, it later moved to the gates of Sharp Memorial Hospital, where Emily worked and vanished. Miguel Vargas always carried a framed photo of his daughter in her nurse's uniform, preserved since 2012. Rosa held a bouquet of white lilies, eyes red but resolute in attending. They lit candles, prayed in silence, and Emily's friends and colleagues, though fewer than in early years, quietly joined to share words. Sharp Memorial allowed a small table in the lobby with a sign, "In loving memory of Emily Vargas." Some years only a few dozen attended, others just the family and close friends. But the candles burned on, despite rain or public apathy. For the Vargas family, it was the only way to keep Emily present in the world. On Emily's birthdays, Miguel wrote handwritten letters to the San Diego Police Department, reminding them that his daughter was kind, idealistic, and dreamed of teaching community nursing classes. He begged them not to let her file gather dust. The letters often received polite responses, sometimes just a curt, "No new developments, but the case remains open." Though formulaic, Miguel persisted, writing as a ritual, a way to fight the silence. Meanwhile, the media only sporadically revisited the case. In 2015, the San Diego Union-Tribune ran a piece for the 3-year mark, titled, "The Vanishing of a Nurse Still No Answers." In 2017, Fox 5 aired a short segment for the 5th anniversary, showing the Vargas family lighting candles outside the hospital, but it aired late with little viewership. Each mention rekindled the family's hope that a witness might recall something or a new lead would emerge. But every time, silence followed. From 2013 to 2020, San Diego changed, population grew, crime fluctuated, surveillance technology advanced. Yet Emily's case remained stuck in 2012. Witness statements, parking lot photos, phone ping maps, all sat untouched in a cold case box. Each passing year added dust to the file's cover, with only the Vargas family keeping the faint flame alive. They knew the world was forgetting, but to them, Emily was never just an unsolved case. She was a daughter, a sister, a colleague, who walked out to the parking lot on May 12th and never returned. Even as the city fell silent, the Vargas family kept lighting candles, sending letters, and waiting for the day the long silence would break. In 2021, nearly a decade after Emily Vargas vanished, the seemingly forgotten case took a startling turn thanks to non-police civilians. A volunteer group specializing in sonar searches of lakes and rivers, often called in for stalled missing person cases, was surveying Miramar Reservoir in San Diego's northern suburbs. During a routine scan, they explored a deep water area previously unchecked. Their side-scan sonar emitted steady pings beneath the dark water. On the screen, an unusual rectangular shape appeared, about 40 meters from shore, partially buried in lakebed mud. The operator paused, zoomed in, and hearts raced. It wasn't a rock, but clearly a car. The San Diego PD was notified immediately. The next day, under police and coroner supervision, professional divers were dispatched. Equipped with lights and cables, they descended into the cold, dark water. Thick mud obscured most of the vehicle, but a familiar shape emerged. A four-door sedan, its roof rusted windshield shattered. After hours of securing cables and hooks, a hydraulic crane pulled the heavy object to the surface. Under the midday sun, mud slid off, revealing a silver Toyota Corolla, missing since 2012. Everyone present held their breath as sunlight hit the license plate, faded but legible. It matched the registration of Emily Vargas's car. The area was immediately sealed as a crime scene. Investigators in hazmat suits approached, cautiously opening the car doors. Inside, the sight silenced them. On the driver's seat, amid mud and debris, were decomposed human bones mixed with rotted fabric. In the back seat pocket, they found a waterlogged, tattered women's wallet containing Emily's hospital ID. On the floor, a mud-stained nurse's uniform bore the faint Sharp Memorial Hospital logo. In the trunk, a black backpack with rusted zippers held personal items, a notebook, a pen, and a cracked plastic lunchbox. The police stood still, the volunteers teared up. One whispered, "We've found her." After nearly 10 years, the unthinkable had happened. The car that vanished with Emily Vargas was recovered from Miramar Reservoir. News spread like wildfire. Within hours, local TV stations sent reporters to the scene. Helicopters filmed the mud-caked Corolla being loaded onto a flatbed, moving slowly through police barriers. Headlines flashed, "Cold case breakthrough, missing nurse's car found." After 9 years. When the news reached the Vargas family, they could barely believe it. Miguel sank into a chair, hands trembling as he clutched Emily's photo. Rosa sobbed uncontrollably. "My daughter has finally been found." The pain didn't lessen, but the 9-year uncertainty had an endpoint. At least they no longer faced the daily question, was Emily alive or dead? Neighbors brought flowers, embracing the family. Emily's former Sharp Memorial colleagues set up a small memorial in the hospital lobby, where young nurses lit candles and placed white roses, whispering her name. San Diego was abuzz. On social media, #Emily Vargas surged, with tens of thousands sharing the news, many writing, "We didn't know Emily, but her story has haunted us for nearly a decade." In a brief press conference at Miramar Reservoir, a San Diego PD representative stated, "We confirm the silver Toyota Corolla is Emily Vargas's, missing since May 2012. Human remains and personal items consistent with the victim were found inside. We're treating this as a crime scene and will investigate fully." The words confirmed a grim reality. Emily's disappearance was no longer a vague mystery, but officially a homicide. As night fell on San Diego, candles glowed again in Balboa Park. The Vargas family held a short prayer vigil, no longer with a still missing sign, but one reading "Finally found." Tears mingled with candlelight, a mix of profound grief and bitter solace. Emily would never return, but she hadn't been forgotten, and the truth of that fateful night in 2012 was beginning to emerge. The silver Toyota Corolla was taken to San Diego PD's impound lot and then to the county's forensic lab. The car and its contents were treated as a strict crime scene. Every centimeter photographed, numbered, and documented. Opening the doors released a stench of mud, rusted metal, and the musty odor of long decomposed remains. On the driver's seat, forensic experts found scattered bones, a skull with a long crack, a few vertebrae, a pelvis, and smaller fragments in thick mud. The clothing was nearly rotted, with only threads remaining, but buttons and a fabric patch with the Sharp Memorial Hospital logo were identifiable. The autopsy began the next day. Forensic pathologists confirmed the body was almost entirely skeletal. Comparing dental records, they noted a silver filling in the victim's left front tooth, matching Emily Vargas's dental file. For absolute certainty, DNA was extracted from bone marrow. Testing against Rosa Vargas's DNA confirmed a 100% match. The report to police was clear. The remains were Emily Vargas. The family was informed, and tears flowed again. The pain was raw but no longer uncertain. They knew Emily was never coming back. For police, identifying her was just the start. Determining the cause of death and circumstances was critical. Examining the car's interior, forensic experts noted anomalies. The driver's door lock mechanism was broken, with signs it had been locked from the outside, trapping whoever was inside. A typical accident-submerged car would show scratch marks or scuffs from escape attempts, but the Corolla had none. The driver's door was sealed, as if intentionally turned into a cage. Under close inspection, the driver's seat revealed old, darkened bloodstains. Though largely washed away by years underwater, advanced techniques isolated hemoglobin traces. The blood was Emily's, but a tiny additional sample didn't match her DNA. This sent shockwaves through the team. Someone else had been in the car or bled during the crime. Examining the driver's seatbelt, experts found a long, thick black hair, unlike Emily's, caught in the buckle. Preliminary analysis showed male DNA. This was the most significant lead since her disappearance. The evidence painted a chilling picture. If this were an accident, the door wouldn't be locked from outside, there'd be escape attempts, and no stranger's hair would be present. If Emily drove into the lake, why was another person's blood in the car? All pointed to one conclusion: this wasn't an accident, but a deliberate murder, staged to mislead. The forensic report reached police with a stark conclusion. Cause of death cannot be determined due to decomposition, but scene and evidence rule out an accident. The victim was likely acted upon by one or more individuals before the car was submerged. When this leaked, media headlines screamed, "Nurse Emily Vargas murdered, not an accident." San Diego, already stunned by the car's discovery, was rocked again. In the Vargas family, grief turned to anger. Miguel spoke at a vigil. "My daughter was murdered. We waited 9 years for the truth, and now we'll wait until justice is served." The community shared their outrage. On social media, calls urged police to find the killer. Women's groups held small marches around Sharp Memorial, holding signs, "Justice for Emily." For the cold case unit, the forensic report reignited a case thought permanently cold. They were no longer probing a vague disappearance, but a murder with a victim, a crime scene, and physical evidence: blood, hair, an oddly locked door. The scattered pieces of nearly a decade were finally connecting. That night, in the meeting room, Emily Vargas was rewritten on the whiteboard in red ink, underlined 3 times, signaling the case was fully active again. The forensic report's assertion that this was no accident forced San Diego PD into action. The cold case unit officially reopened Emily Vargas's case in the summer of 2021, nearly 9 years after her disappearance. A closed-door meeting was held in a small third-floor room, where dusty files were spread across the table. On the whiteboard, Emily Vargas was written in red below 3 keywords: murder, vehicle, male DNA. Veteran and young investigators sat around, faces tense. "We're not investigating a missing person anymore," the unit commander began. "We're investigating a murder, and the killer has been free for nearly a decade." The first task was reconstructing the May 2012 timeline. They retraced every hour and minute of May 12. Hospital cameras showed Emily leaving the break room at 11:30 p.m., appearing in the parking lot at 11:37 p.m. After that, no visual trace. Her phone went dead in Mission Valley at 11:45 p.m. That's where the original file ended. Now, with new technology, they re-examined 2012 traffic camera and cell tower data. Though rudimentary then, modern image analysis could enhance clarity and uncover missed details. A dedicated team was tasked with retrieving archived digital data, hoping to spot headlights, a car's outline, or a faint license plate once deemed useless. Concurrently, a new list was compiled. All Sharp Memorial Hospital staff working the night of May 12. It included doctors, nurses, security, janitors, and technicians. Previously, most were only briefly interviewed, but now all were reconsidered. A young detective noted, if the killer accessed Emily in the lot, he knew her shift patterns and hospital routines. An outsider wouldn't randomly pick the perfect moment. The idea resonated. Clearly, the suspect pool now extended deeper into the hospital's staff. Overlooked clues were revisited. The security guard's report of a dark pickup truck circling the lot near midnight, once dismissed as vague, was now highlighted in red. The neighbor's account of an unfamiliar engine noise in the apartment parking garage was re-examined. Paired with forensic findings, these once disparate details formed a plausible scenario. A male, possibly driving a pickup, approached and overpowered Emily in the lot. The cold case unit also uncovered a previously ignored detail in the old file. In April 2012, Emily had noted in her personal journal about an annoying man lingering near the staff break area. The brief entry lacked a name or description, so it was overlooked then. Now, it was seen as a potential link to hospital staff. To bolster efforts, the cold case unit collaborated with the county prosecutor's office, adding DNA analysts and profiling experts to the team. They began sketching a hypothetical suspect, male, with access or opportunity at the hospital, familiar with Emily's habits, and capable of driving a vehicle large enough to transport or tow the silver Corolla from the scene. Late-night meetings stretched on. Old files were reopened, marked with colorful sticky notes. A veteran detective admitted, "We missed a lot in 2012. This time, we can't let any details slip." Silence followed, broken only by pen taps and flipping pages. The room was thick with the realization that the killer had lived freely among the community for nearly a decade, perhaps sipping coffee at a nearby shop, while the Vargas family waited in agony for justice. The Emily Vargas case was officially placed at the forefront of San Diego's cold case list. From the dry lines of the forensic report, a new truth emerged. The path to the killer was finally open, waiting only for someone patient and sharp enough to follow the traces dormant for nearly a decade. From the old clues laid back on the table, the cold case unit knew the most critical evidence wasn't in vague witness statements, but in the male hair found in the Corolla's seatbelt. It was the only item with DNA not belonging to Emily, and it could unlock the door to the killer. After forensic analysis confirmed the hair came from a man, the team decided to send it to a cutting-edge lab in Texas, renowned for genealogical DNA analysis, a method that had cracked dozens of long-dormant murder cases across the U.S. This process was far from traditional DNA testing. Instead of comparing only to criminal records in CODIS, limited to those previously arrested, genealogical DNA tapped into vast commercial ancestry databases. Millions of Americans had submitted saliva samples to trace family roots, and these records, when shared for forensic purposes, could map an entire lineage. Even a small percentage match could allow algorithms to trace back to related family branches. As the hair sample was packaged, sealed, labeled, and shipped to Texas, the atmosphere in the San Diego investigation room grew unusually tense. Everyone understood this could be the last chance to break the case's vicious cycle. A young detective whispered, "We've waited nearly 10 years. Now we wait for the DNA to speak." But the words didn't ease the anxiety. Experience told them genealogical DNA could take weeks, even months, for results, and success wasn't guaranteed. While waiting, the Texas lab began decoding the hair's genome. Under a microscope, the hair's structure was clear enough to extract nuclear DNA. They ran it through next-generation sequencing machines, generating millions of genetic data points. The algorithm then cross-referenced these with ancestry databases. Initial results showed distant matches, relatives in the Midwest and Florida. Names appeared on the screen with match percentages, 2.1%, 3.7%, then 6.4%. The Texas experts pieced them into a family tree, narrowing down branches. After over a month of analysis, a standout result emerged. Multiple matches pointed to the Benitez family, primarily living in Chula Vista, south of San Diego. An expert called the cold case unit directly. "We've narrowed it to a specific lineage. You'll need to verify on the ground." On the other end, the meeting room fell silent. The detectives exchanged glances, no one speaking for seconds. For the first time in nearly a decade, They had a specific name to pursue, not just witness shadows or baseless rumors. But with this spark of hope came immense pressure. If the Benitez family was truly linked, who among dozens of members across generations left the hair in Emily's car? They needed time to connect data points, sift through residency records, employment history, and specifically those in San Diego in 2012. One misstep could unravel everything. During the days awaiting the final report, the investigation room felt like a pressure cooker. A San Diego map was spread on the wall, alongside hospital photos, parking lot images, and Mission Valley diagrams. The whiteboard was filled with names in blue ink, but Benitez stood out in red, underlined twice. Each phone ring made hearts race, hoping it was Texas calling. One day, a detective stepped onto the balcony, chain-smoking 3 cigarettes to calm his nerves. Another stayed late, combing through hospital staff records, searching for any intersection between Emily and a Benitez. When the official report arrived late that month, bold text read, "Strong genetic matches indicate paternal lineage to Benitez family. Chula Vista, California." The room erupted as everyone stood. They knew the path was open. The question now wasn't whether the Benitez family was involved, but which member had crossed Emily Vargas's life and left a trace in that fateful car. With this truth, the hunt for the killer began anew, this time with a clearer target than ever. As the Texas lab report confirmed the genetic link to the Benitez family in Chula Vista, the cold case unit immediately formed a task force to vet each member. The family spanned generations, with distant and close relatives, but narrowing it to those living or working in San Diego in 2012, quickly highlighted a name, Carlos Benitez, 36. A former maintenance worker at Sharp Memorial Hospital. Hospital personnel records showed Carlos was hired in 2010, working night shifts maintaining electrical systems, plumbing, and elevators. But after 2 years, he was fired for frequent unexcused absences and poor discipline. Records noted that in May 2012, when Emily vanished, Carlos had been reprimanded for skipping shifts. Back then, police never suspected him, as he was just a low-level maintenance worker, not among Emily's close contacts. The cold case detectives felt a chill reading this. One whispered, "He was right there in the hospital that night." Reviewing 2012 interview lists, Carlos Benitez's name didn't even appear. The original investigation focused on the ex-boyfriend, a harassing colleague, and street witnesses. This unnoticed maintenance worker had slipped through every investigative lens, living undisturbed for nearly a decade. Police dug into Carlos's current life. He lived in a modest Chula Vista home with his wife and 2 young children. Neighbors described him as quiet, private, not very social. Some recalled seeing him leave late at night in an old pickup truck, destination unknown. A woman across the street said, "He's polite, greets you, but his eyes always seem to hide something." This heightened the detective's caution. Checking his criminal record, Carlos had no major convictions, just traffic tickets and a 2009 bars fight. He wasn't a typical suspect in missing person cases, which made his anonymity so effective. But with the genealogical DNA match and his hospital employment during Emily's disappearance, he became the prime suspect. In an internal meeting, a detective noted he didn't need to know Emily to strike. He just needed her shift schedule, the parking lot layout, and the camera blind spots, all within a maintenance worker's reach. The room fell silent, the logic chillingly sound. Someone with keys to multiple areas, able to evade security, and familiar with the hospital's layout, could easily target a nurse, leaving a late shift. The case file grew daily with new details. Carlos was fired in June 2012, weeks after Emily's disappearance, officially for unexplained absences. A former supervisor revealed to police that Carlos seemed restless, quick-tempered then. He never mentioned Emily, but avoided questions about night shifts. Still, the cold case unit proceeded cautiously. They had no direct evidence against Carlos beyond the genealogical DNA link. To bring the case to light, they needed more, a direct DNA match to the hair or proof of his presence in the Corolla. But deep down, every detective sensed that after nearly a decade in the dark, they had finally glimpsed the face of the man who brought Emily Vargas to her death. And this time, he wouldn't escape. After pinpointing Carlos Benitez, 36, a former Sharp Memorial maintenance worker during Emily's disappearance, the cold case unit moved to the most sensitive phase, covert surveillance. They knew they couldn't arrest him solely on genealogical DNA, which only showed a genetic link, not direct proof. To take the case to court, they needed undeniable evidence. A current DNA sample from Carlos matched directly to the hair in the Corolla's seatbelt. To get it, they had to tail him and collect something he discarded in daily life. In early September 2021, a two-detective team was assigned to monitor him. They set up disguised cameras near the quiet Chula Vista Street, where Carlos lived with his wife and two young kids. Each morning, he dropped his kids at school. Afternoons, he worked odd jobs for an appliance repair company. Evenings, he returned home, sometimes driving his old pickup truck out for a few hours before returning late. His routines were meticulously logged: times, routes, even his slow, weary walk into the house. This man is too ordinary, and that ordinariness is his most dangerous mask, a detective remarked after days of observation. But surveillance wasn't just about watching. They needed DNA. An opportunity came one Friday evening when Carlos stood on his porch, drinking a beer from a can and tossing it into the garage trash bin. Detectives marked the time, waited for him to go inside, and quietly retrieved the can, sealing it in an evidence bag. The next day, they returned to the bin, collecting a crumpled tissue with faint mucus, potentially carrying epithelial cells. Both items were rushed to the forensic lab. The wait for results felt longer than years. The cold case unit room was thick with tension. Everyone knew that if Carlos's DNA matched the hair, they had their killer after nearly a decade. If it didn't, the theory would collapse, and all efforts would return to zero. A veteran detective whispered, "This is the moment we either get justice or lose it forever." When the lab's official report arrived, the team leader opened the envelope before the group. Bold text made hearts stop. DNA profile from collected sample matches 100% with DNA sample from hair found in victim's vehicle. A perfect match, no room for error. The hair in the seatbelt from 2012 was Carlos Benitez. The room was silent for seconds. Then came relieved breaths and hands slamming tables. A young detective murmured, "We've got him." That night, the team compiled a 100-page report, gathering everything: genealogical DNA results, direct DNA match, 2012 hospital personnel details, witness accounts of the pickup truck, and the forensic report confirming murder. The file was marked urgent and sent to the San Diego County Prosecutor's Office. The report emphasized direct DNA evidence, combined with circumstantial and temporal data, indicates Carlos Benitez as the primary suspect, likely having approached and killed Emily Vargas before disposing of her car in Miramar Reservoir. In the small meeting room, the detective's eyes burned with resolve. After nearly a decade, Emily Vargas's killer had a face. Only one step remained: securing an arrest warrant and bringing him to justice. But all knew this final step would be as tense as everything before, as they prepared to confront a man who had hidden in plain sight for 9 years, living as an ordinary father and neighbor while carrying a deadly secret. And in their hearts, a question echoed: would he accept the cuffs or fight to the end as his past finally caught up? When the cold case unit's 100-page report was submitted, the San Diego County prosecutor spent an entire afternoon reviewing every detail. The matching DNA, witness statements, 2012 hospital records, and irrefutable forensic report formed a comprehensive picture. Finally, he signed the most critical document in nearly a decade: an arrest warrant for Carlos Benitez on first-degree murder charges. That paper was the key to turning Emily Vargas's cold case into a public trial. Immediately after the warrant was approved, an emergency meeting convened at police headquarters. On a large screen, Carlos Benitez's image appeared: 36, average build, short hair, indifferent eyes in his driver's license photo. The tactical commander stressed, "The target lives with his wife and 2 young kids. We must ensure their safety, the neighbors and our officers. Detectives reported Carlos's routines from weeks of surveillance, up at 6 a.m. Kids to school by 7, then home to change before work. This was deemed the best time, when he was relaxed and least alert. The plan was detailed to the minute. San Diego PD's SWAT team would lead, coordinating with cold case detectives. Armored vehicles would block the street's entrance. One team would approach the front door, another the back to prevent escape. A backup helicopter was ready for emergencies, though all hoped it wouldn't be needed. Meanwhile, the police media team prepared a press release. They knew this case had haunted the public for nearly a decade, so any move would hit headlines. The release highlighted the blend of modern DNA technology and the cold case unit's persistence, reassuring the community that police had control. We need to send a message. Justice may be late, but it doesn't vanish, the spokesperson reiterated. In the days awaiting execution, the investigation room felt like a taut guitar string. A veteran detective with the case since 2012 quietly pinned Emily's photo to the board's corner. He whispered, "We're doing this for her." The others nodded, knowing every step forward was not just procedure, but a duty to a young woman robbed of her future and a family worn down by years of waiting. The night before the operation, SWAT checked gear, handguns, bulletproof vests, radios, handcuffs. The leader reminded them, "We're entering the home of a father and husband. But don't forget, he's also a murder suspect. Be cautious, quick, no unintended casualties." Outside, Chula Vista was calm as any night, streets bathed in gentle yellow light. But in the officers' hearts, a storm was brewing. At 5:30 a.m., the team gathered at a rendezvous point blocks from Carlos's home. The neighborhood map was reviewed one last time, positions marked in red. All eyes were on 6 a.m. That's when Carlos typically woke. Kids still in bed, the street quiet. It was the moment police believed they could subdue him easiest before he could react. A detective gripped the case file, thinking, "We're about to end this cycle." At exactly 6 a.m., as dawn broke and Chula Vista lay in morning mist, the SWAT team moved into position. Armored vehicles blocked the street. 2 unmarked SUVs flanked the sides, and detectives circled to the back door. Neighbors slept, unaware that minutes later, the street would witness a shocking scene. The radio crackled decisively. "Go, go, go!" a loudspeaker boomed. "Carlos Benitez. This is San Diego Police. Come out with your hands up." The small cream-colored house lit up. A figure moved behind a window. Tense seconds stretched like hours, then the door swung open. Carlos, in pajamas, eyes bleary, froze at the sight of gun barrels and vests gleaming under flashlights. His wife stood behind, clutching their 2 young kids, the little girl sobbing, her cries piercing the morning. "On your knees," the command barked. Carlos glanced around, as if seeking an escape, then slowly raised his hands. 2 officers rushed in, wrenching his arms back, snapping on cuffs. The cold metal on his wrists marked the moment Emily Vargas's suspected killer was finally subdued after nearly a decade of freedom. The scene unfolded in under 3 minutes, but it took a decade to reach. As Carlos was led out, his wife wailed, screaming, "He didn't do anything." Police calmed her, escorting her and the kids to a neighbor's for safety. Carlos, head bowed, shuffled heavily through the police cordon. His face resigned, but eyes cold and unreadable. Patrol car lights flashed red and blue, reflecting off his face, turning the peaceful street into a crime scene stage. News spread instantly. A local reporter arrived, camera panning from the street, capturing Carlos being loaded into a squad car. Morning broadcasts blared. Breaking news: suspect arrested in 2012, Emily Vargas cold case. Neighbors spilled outside, many stunned to learn the quiet man who greeted them daily was the suspect in a murder haunting the city. A middle-aged woman gasped, "I can't believe it. He fixed my air conditioner." As the convoy left Chula Vista, social media erupted. Live arrest footage was shared tens of thousands of times. San Diego residents were shocked. many comments echoing, "How could he live among us for 10 years?" The community was rattled, both shaken and relieved. A man once ordinary was revealed as a keeper of a deadly secret. At police headquarters, as Carlos was escorted in, the Vargas family got the news. Miguel sat stunned. Rosa sobbed. Finally, this day has come. For them, it wasn't just a legal event, but the first ray of justice after a grueling decade. While the family reeled with emotion, across the hall, another scene unfolded. The interrogation where Carlos would face undeniable evidence. That morning, he was led into a cold, white-walled room with a metal table and 2 chairs. The camera blinked red, recording every move, every breath. Carlos, in crumpled pajamas, hair disheveled, looked tired, yet defiant. 2 cold case detectives entered. One placed a water bottle before him. The other opened a thick file, the rustling pages sounding like a tolling bell. The secrets of 9 years were about to be laid bare. "Mr. Benitez," the lead detective began. Voice low and clear, "We arrested you this morning for suspected involvement in the 2012 murder of Emily Vargas." Carlos frowned, feigning surprise. "I don't know her. Never heard that name." He sipped water, leaning back as if to challenge them. But the second detective slid Emily's photo across the table, her radiant smile in a nurse's uniform, next to a picture of the mud-caked Corolla pulled from Miramar Reservoir. "This is the woman who vanished from the hospital where you worked in 2012. This is her car. We found a man's hair inside. Its DNA matches you." Carlos gave a forced laugh, shaking his head. "You've got the wrong guy. I never set foot in her car. DNA? I don't know." But sweat beaded on his forehead. The lead detective pressed on, placing a bold printed result, DNA profile match, 100%. "This is science, Mr. Benitez. It doesn't lie." He swallowed hard, eyes darting. His fidgeting hands and tapping on the table betrayed his crumbling facade of calm. After nearly an hour of deflecting, Carlos remained adamant in his denials. But then, in an attempt to justify himself, he let slip a sentence that made both detectives freeze mid-note. He said, "Maybe someone left hair in the car. I don't even know that the Corolla's keys were usually kept in the left glove compartment." The words cut through the air, leaving a thick silence. The lead detective slowly looked up, locking eyes with him. "What did you just say? The left glove compartment? How do you know Emily's keys were kept there?" Carlos stiffened, his eyes flashing with panic. He stammered, "I was just guessing. People usually keep keys there, right?" But it was too late. The detail was a trap. In the 2012 case file, Emily's roommate had stated that Emily always kept a spare key in the small left glove compartment of her car. This information was never public, never mentioned in the media. Only someone who had been inside that car, who had rummaged through it, could know. The other detective leaned forward, scrawling in red ink, "Incriminating statement, key location." The wall-mounted camera captured the moment Carlos slipped up. Every denial he'd made before became meaningless. Without a confession, that single sentence inadvertently confirmed his presence in the car on that fateful night in 2012. The room's atmosphere shifted. The lead detective stopped pressing evidence, letting silence weigh heavily. Carlos stared down, his hands clenched until they turned white. Finally, he muttered, "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to scare her," then stopped, realizing he'd slipped further. The detective cut in. "Everything you say here is recorded. You have the right to remain silent, but every word will go before a court." Over 4 hours of interrogation, Carlos oscillated between denials and excuses, but the more he spoke, the more he entangled himself in contradictions. When asked why he frequently missed shifts in 2012, he dodged, changing his answers repeatedly. When confronted about the pickup truck seen by a witness in the parking lot, he denied owning one, but registration records showed he had a used pickup that year. Layer by layer, the evidence was presented, and every wall he built cracked. By the end, the detectives left the room, leaving Carlos alone under harsh white lights, hands cuffed to the metal table. The camera kept rolling, capturing his bowed head and twitching like a cornered animal. They knew he hadn't confessed, but his slip about the keys, combined with the DNA evidence, was enough to render his denials futile. The entire interrogation, from his forced laugh to the moment he revealed the car key detail, would become the heaviest evidence against him in the upcoming trial. Immediately after Carlos Benitez's interrogation ended, and all statements and DNA evidence were fully collected, the case file was sent to the San Diego County District Attorney's Office. Within a week, a formal 60-page indictment was drafted, detailing every incriminating point. On April 15, 2022, San Diego County District Attorney Linda Navarro stood at a podium before dozens of crowded reporters at the Justice Center's press room. She opened the file, her voice firm. The grand jury has reviewed and unanimously agreed to indict the defendant, Carlos Benitez, age 36, on 3 serious charges: kidnapping, sexual assault, and first-degree murder, in the death of young nurse Emily Vargas in May 2012. The room buzzed, camera shutters clicking relentlessly. If convicted, these charges meant life without parole, or even the death penalty under California law. Navarro explained the process leading to the indictment, from the discovery of the silver Corolla submerged in Miramar Reservoir to genealogical DNA, narrowing the suspect pool, to covert surveillance, collecting DNA from trash, and finally the interrogation where Benitez slipped about the car keys. Every small piece was assembled over 10 years. Today, we have a clear picture of the truth, she affirmed. The press conference became a major event in San Diego. Local TV stations broadcast live, while major outlets from Los Angeles, even CNN and NBC, sent reporters. Outside the building, people gathered, holding Emily Vargas's photos, candles, and banners reading "Justice for Emily." Amid the sea of cameras, the Vargas family appeared for the first time since the suspect's arrest was announced. Emily's mother, Rosa Vargas, trembling, held the microphone, eyes red. "We've waited 10 years for this moment. 10 long years of silence, pain, and waiting. Finally, my daughter has a voice again through justice." Her father, Miguel Vargas, looked up at the dozens of reporters, voice choked but resolute. "Every year I wrote letters to the police, reminding them Emily wasn't forgotten. Every birthday, we lit candles at the hospital where she worked. Today, those letters, those candles, have led to this day." Cameras zoomed in, capturing a frail, gray-haired father, aged by waiting, finally grasping hope for justice. Reporters fired questions. Is there evidence beyond DNA? Could there be a second suspect? Why did it take exactly 10 years to solve? Navarro calmly responded, "We can only disclose what's necessary at this stage. However, I can assure you, no case is forgotten. Technological advances brought us here today." She emphasized that the full process would be thoroughly reviewed by the grand jury in the upcoming trial. Notably, a Sharp Memorial Hospital representative, where Emily worked, was present. The spokesperson said, "Emily was more than a colleague. She was family at Sharp. Her death left an unfillable void. We thank the police and prosecutors for not giving up." The hospital announced a memorial plaque for Emily in its courtyard, a reminder of her resilience and dedication. The press conference ended with the Vargas family stepping outside, surrounded by a clapping community, many tearfully embracing Rosa. Live broadcast captured it, watched by thousands across America. For them, this wasn't just news of a solved murder after 10 years, it was proof that justice may be delayed, but never vanishes. For the Vargas family, it opened a new chapter, no longer waiting in despair but embarking on a journey to secure justice for their daughter in court. The preliminary hearing was set for late May 2022, less than 2 months after the shocking press conference. From early morning, the San Diego County Courthouse hallway was packed with reporters, cameras jostling, while dozens outside held Emily's photos and "Justice for Emily" signs. As police escorted Carlos Benitez into the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed, camera flashes erupted. Inside, the gallery was full, not a seat empty. The Vargas family sat in the front row, eyes fixed on the defendant, faces tense. The atmosphere was so heavy, the silence felt suffocating. Prosecutor Linda Navarro opened with a detailed presentation. She reconstructed the timeline of May 12, 2012, from the hospital camera capturing Emily leaving the parking lot at 11:37 p.m. to her phone signal abruptly dying in Mission Valley at 11:45 p.m. She then projected images from Miramar Reservoir, where the silver Toyota Corolla was found. Amid courtroom murmurs, she slowly described, "In the car, alongside Emily's remains, we found her backpack, wallet, nurse's uniform, and a hair on the seatbelt. That hair was the case's turning point." Forensic experts testified in turn. A Texas DNA analyst confirmed. The hair was sequenced using genealogical DNA, yielding matches to the Benitez family. A direct sample from Carlos Benitez matched 100%. He explained preservation protocols, ruling out contamination, solidifying the argument. The prosecution added cell tower data, showing Carlos's phone pinged in Mission Valley at the same time as Emily's disappearance, a previously undisclosed detail. The defense attorney fiercely countered. His voice boomed, pointing at the prosecution. "This is all circumstantial. No witness saw my client with Emily Vargas. No camera captured him approaching or forcing her into the car. DNA in the car? It could be contaminated. Cell tower? It only confirms an area, not an exact location. This is speculation, not truth." He suggested that as a hospital maintenance worker, Carlos's hair could have fallen in a shared environment and somehow ended up in the car. The prosecution didn't flinch. They played the interrogation video where Carlos mentioned the Corolla's keys. Navarro pointed. This detail was never public. Only someone who'd been in the car, touched the keys, could know. He exposed himself. She emphasized each word as the Vargas family teared up, while the defendant bowed his head, gripping his chair. After nearly a day of arguments, the judge ruled. He struck the gavel, voice firm. While much evidence is circumstantial, together it forms a clear, legally sufficient picture to proceed to a full trial before a jury. The defense's motion to dismiss is denied. The courtroom was silent for seconds, then murmurs and relieved sighs mixed with emotion. The Vargas family embraced, Miguel nodding silently, as if telling his daughter, "We're getting closer to justice." News broke instantly. Carlos Benitez trial moves forward. San Diego stunned. Social media erupted, many expressing outrage, others relief that after 10 years, the case was no longer silent. Thus, the door to a historic trial opened, where justice for Emily Vargas would be decided before the world. On the first days of the formal trial, prosecutor Linda Navarro focused on their strongest card, DNA evidence. Before a 12-member jury, she called Dr. Raymond Clark, a leading forensic expert from the Texas lab that analyzed the hair from the silver Corolla. He stepped to the stand, carefully opening a thick file, his gaze serious. "We used genealogical DNA, the most advanced method for tracing biological markers to identify individuals," he began. The courtroom was silent, save for reporters typing. Clark detailed each step. The hair was processed to extract nuclear DNA. Despite nearly a decade underwater, new molecular amplification technology reconstructed sufficient genetic data. The profile was then compared to millions in public databases. "We didn't find Carlos Benitez immediately," he said. "We found distant relatives sharing his genetic markers. From there, we built a family tree, narrowing it down until only one person matched the age, location, and occupation. On screen, family tree diagrams appeared, shrinking from hundreds of names to the Benitez family in Chula Vista." Navarro asked, "How accurate is this method?" Clark looked at the jury, stating, "With a direct sample from Carlos Benitez, the result was a perfect match, 1 in 10 trillion odds. Scientifically, it's no one else." The cold numbers resonated, some jurors nodding. The defense attorney rose, trying to counter. "Do you admit DNA could be contaminated over nearly 10 years? That the sample could be affected by the environment, the lake water, even handlers?" Clark calmly replied, "Every process has contamination risks. But here, Negative controls tested negative. Benitez's genetic sequence appeared consistently, not by contamination. He paused, concluding, "If you doubt this is a coincidence, that coincidence is greater than us all being in this room together." A few soft chuckles broke out, quickly hushed by the judge. After DNA, the prosecution turned to witnesses, a weaker but necessary piece. They called Maria Lopez, Emily's former head nurse. She stepped up, hands clasped tightly, visibly tense. "I remember one night in early May 2012, she recounted. "I left the break room and saw a man near the technical area where maintenance staff worked. I'd never seen him before, but he wore a dark green uniform. Emily passed by, whispering to me, 'That guy makes me uneasy.'" Lopez paused, eyes welling, then pointed at the defendant. "I'm certain it was him, Carlos Benitez." The defense objected, "A 10-year-old memory can fade. You could be mistaken." But the prosecution stressed that Lopez's statement aligned with personnel records, confirming Carlos worked maintenance at Sharp Memorial when Emily disappeared. The jury watched intently. Some took notes, others stared at the defendant. Carlos, in a gray prison-issued suit, looked more tense than ever. He shook his head, lips pursed, avoiding the witness's gaze. The prosecution added cell tower data. On May 12, 2012, Carlos's phone pinged in Mission Valley, alongside Emily's before hers went dead. Though the defense called this circumstantial, the coincidence, paired with DNA and witness testimony, strengthened the prosecution's case. That day, as the session paused, media headlines blared. "DNA and witnesses point directly to Carlos Benitez." San Diego buzzed, many calling it a pivotal moment in the quest for justice for Emily Vargas. The jury, though silent, showed through their eyes a growing trust in the scientific evidence. 3 days of deliberation felt like 3 decades for the Vargas family. They waited in their small Chula Vista apartment, avoiding media, only praying. Outside, San Diego watched anxiously. Daily headlines read, "Jury continues deliberation. No verdict yet in Emily Vargas' case." But on the 4th morning, when the court announced a verdict, the Vargas family's phones nearly crashed. Rosa, clutching a small cross, trembled as she entered the courtroom. Miguel, silent, steadied his wife through the reporter crowd. The air was thick with anticipation, every breath held. As the jury entered, the courtroom stood, silent. The judge asked, "Have you reached a verdict?" The jury spokesperson, a middle-aged woman with graying hair, stood, voice clear. "Your Honor, we have. On the charge of first-degree murder of Emily Vargas, we find the defendant, Carlos Benitez, guilty." The gavel struck. In that moment, silence shattered. Some in the courtroom sobbed, others embraced. Rosa buried her face, weeping, while Miguel wrapped his arms around her, tears streaming down his gaunt cheeks. Both whispered, as if to their daughter, "You have justice now, Emily." Carlos Benitez sat motionless in the defendant's chair. His face briefly flushed, then paled. He stared at the floor, hands trembling. His attorney placed a hand on his shoulder, whispering something, but Carlos's eyes were vacant, as if accepting his fate. Prosecutor Linda Navarro turned to the Vargas family, nodding slightly. A promise kept. The trial moved to sentencing. The prosecution demanded the maximum life without parole, stressing the crime's brutality and the decade of suffering inflicted on the family and community. The defense pleaded for leniency, citing Carlos's family, his 2 young children, and arguing everyone can change. But the judge's final words were stern. "You took the life of a young woman, causing a decade of pain for her family and this community. There's no room for mercy here. Your sentence is life imprisonment without parole." The gavel struck again, ending a decade of waiting. In the courtroom, reporters rushed out to break the news. Headlines hit instantly. Carlos Benitez sentenced to life without parole in Emily Vargas murder. Outside, dozens gathered, cheering, some placing candles and red roses on the courthouse steps. Emily's parents stepped out the main doors, surrounded by supporters. Rosa, choking on tears, managed, "We waited 10 years. Today, my daughter can finally rest." Miguel gripped his wife's hand, eyes skyward. "Emily, justice is yours." Reporters bombarded them. "How do you feel about the verdict? Can you forgive the defendant?" Miguel replied simply, "Forgiveness is God's job. Justice today is humanity's." His words were quoted across evening news. Meanwhile, Carlos's attorney hurried off, dodging questions. The Benitez family, his wife and 2 young children, didn't appear in court. Chula Vista was stunned to learn their neighbor was a killer hiding for a decade. The verdict closed not just the case, but the darkest chapter in San Diego's judicial history. Many believed the Vargas family's persistence, alongside DNA advancements, brought this outcome. For the community, it affirmed that no matter how long, truth would be found. The next morning, California's major newspapers ran the same front-page headline, "San Diego's 10-year cold case finally closed." Emily Vargas's smiling nurse photo appeared beside a faded image of the silver Corolla pulled from Miramar's depths. Articles emphasized, justice may be slow, but it doesn't vanish. TV news replayed the jury's guilty verdict, intercut with the Vargas parents embracing in tears. The community was stunned, relieved, and outraged. Many viewers called local stations, unable to believe a decade-long case tied to such a familiar face. In Carl's quiet Chula Vista neighborhood, neighbors were reeling. Janice Moore, living across the street, told NBC, "I saw him take his kids to school, shop with his wife. I never thought that quiet man held such a horrific secret." Another added, "It's chilling. He lived next to us all those years while the Vargas family endured unspeakable pain." Carl's house was sealed by police, but flowers and candles piled up at the fence, not for him but for Emily, now a daughter to the entire city. In the days following the verdict, social media overflowed with tributes. Users posted Emily's photo with #JusticeForEmily, writing, "We didn't know you but we'll never forget you." Sharp Memorial Hospital nurses held a candlelight vigil in the courtyard, hundreds attending, candlelight reflecting off glass walls, a reminder that Emily's loss left an indelible mark. The Vargas family, exhausted by days of court proceedings and media attention, decided to hold a private memorial for Emily at La Jola's shore, where she loved to stroll after long shifts. That day, the sky was clear blue, waves lapping gently. Family, friends, colleagues, and strangers who followed the case stood in a circle, holding white roses. Emily's mother, Rosa, released a small box into the sea, containing a handwritten letter to her daughter. "Dearest Emily, you've come back to us. You will never be forgotten." Her father, Miguel, scattered a handful of sand into the water, watching it dissolve. The sea breeze carried away tears, but brought a measure of peace after 10 years of waiting. The ceremony closed with Emily's close friend singing her favorite song, voice choked with emotion. Children played on the sand, unaware of the full story, but their laughter made some believe that Emily, somewhere, wanted life to go on. As the sun set, Emily's parents stepped forward, embracing, then turned to the group. Miguel spoke, voice trembling but clear. "Justice may be late, but it doesn't vanish. Never stop believing, never stop hoping. Today, we are proof." Applause erupted, drowning out the waves, and so, Emily Vargas's case closed, not in oblivion, but with faith that however long the darkness, the light of truth and justice would find its way. Emily Vargas, the young nurse who vanished in San Diego's night, left a legacy greater than her life, a reminder that justice, though delayed, cannot be extinguished. The story of Emily Vargas is not just a decade-long cold case in San Diego, but a reflection of stark realities in American life today. The fragility of personal safety, the pivotal role of modern forensic science, and the resilient strength of a community facing tragedy. Emily, a dedicated young nurse, disappeared after a night shift in 2012, reminding us that violence can strike even in seemingly safe places, a hospital parking lot. The fact that Carlos Benitez, an unnoticed maintenance worker, lived quietly in Chula Vista's community for nearly a decade, shows how danger can lurk behind familiar faces. The 2021 discovery of the silver Corolla in Miramar Reservoir and the male hair caught in its seatbelt are clear proof that DNA technology and genealogical DNA are becoming breakthrough tools, solving cases once thought hopeless. It's also a reminder of the value of investing in forensic science, as justice may be delayed, but never lost. Most importantly, the greatest lesson comes from the Vargas family. For 10 years, they held memorials, sent letters to police, and kept Emily's name alive. In today's America, where cases of missing persons, domestic violence, or attacks on women are often overlooked, their persistence reminds us that every individual, every family, can be a voice pushing for justice. The final message is clear: stay vigilant in daily life, support victims and their families, and believe that truth, no matter how long buried, will eventually be found. Thank you for joining us in the journey to reclaim justice for Emily Vargas after 10 years of waiting. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow more shocking true crime stories, and we'll see you in the next video.